The New England Patriots are starting Drake Maye at quarterback this week, and it is a massive mistake. That and more on today's edition of Locked On NFL.
The new Locked On NFL. The madman Tyler Rowland is your double shot of NFL espresso with the Locked On local experts on every major story. Get ready, Rowland is revving up. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Football fans, welcome into the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with help from our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. I am your host, the madman, Tyler Rowland, joined today as I am every Friday by the mastermind, Locked On NFL expert Ross Jackson. On today's show, I'm going to tell you why the San Francisco 49ers saved their season on Thursday Night Football, why the changes for the New York Jets won't make a difference, and we'll start with a big quarterback change in New England that is also a big mistake. First, I want to thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen each and every day, and for being an everydayer here with us at the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Make sure that you tune into the afternoon edition of Locked On NFL and step into the barbershop with Tony Wiggins. Today's Locked On NFL is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you're going to get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Ross, it is FanDuel Friday, and I'm going to tell you why the quarterback change in New England makes the Houston Texans a hammer bet. I don't think this is the right week to start the rookie.
Yeah, especially against that Houston Texans defensive line. You kind of want to stay away from that one with the rookie for sure.
Absolutely. But we're going to throw it to my guy, Mike, from Locked On Patriots to break down this quarterback news.
The Drake Maye era is about to begin for the New England Patriots. I'm Mike DeBate, host of the Locked On Patriots podcast, and as many analysts predicted and so many Patriots fans had hoped for, rookie quarterback Drake Maye will finally get the start for the Pats this Sunday when the team hosts the Houston Texans at Gillette Stadium. Now, ideally, the Patriots would have loved to start Drake when he's fully ready and, of course, behind a healthy and strong offensive line. But given the way Jacoby Brissett has struggled in this offense, especially behind this line, they're opting for a quarterback with off-script ability and big play talent to turn things around. Drake can make the downfield throws the Patriots need, and he's developed an ability to read and manipulate coverages. At the end of the day, this may be the right move, it may be the wrong move, but I think few can argue that it's the only move the Patriots can make right now to help turn their offensive woes around.
Well, listen, Mike's right on. It's about the only thing that the Patriots can do. You can't fix your offensive line or get a number one wide receiver in the middle of the season. That is absolutely true. But at the end of the day, you got to think about what's more important right now, giving false hope and false optimism to your fan base for a team that's not that good. And we knew this would not be a very good team coming in. Are you going to put that as something that's more important than the development of your rookie? All that the Patriots can do right now is hurt the development of Drake Maye by putting him behind the worst offensive line in the NFL with a decent group of young wide receivers, but it's young wide receivers who aren't ready to win in contested situations. Putting Drake Maye out there right now when he was a quarterback who did have big talent, but absolutely needed more time to develop, it is a massive mistake for the Patriots. It's a microwave mistake is what I would call it. They want something to be happy about. They want it right now. And at the end of the day, that is exasperated by the matchup. The Houston Texans are going to eat this kid alive.
Man, yeah, the Houston Texans are not the team to do this up against. I think that getting Drake Maye out on the field, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but I'm worried that you might Sam Darnold him in a way, right? It's where he starts to kind of get in his head. He starts to see ghosts that it takes him a while to kind of get comfortable after that. But let me give you some numbers real quick, Tyler, because this is what I'm worried about. I'm not necessarily worried so much about Drake Maye's ability as a quarterback. I'm worried about his personal safety. The New England Patriots, according to Next Gen Stats, have surrendered the highest pressure rates at 3 of 5 positions on their offensive line as compared to the rest of the NFL. Those 3 positions: left tackle, huge, center, huge, and then right guard. So you got pressure from both sides on the interior and on the outside going up against Donnell Hunter, who leads the NFL in pressures right now with 29, and Will Anderson, who's tied for 7th in the NFL in pressures right now with 23. Not a great combination.
Not whatsoever. And Ross, we like to call this FanDuel Friday because we always like to go over our favorite bets that you can go on to FanDuel and check out. That's why the show is sponsored by FanDuel. And for me, the Texans are sitting at 6.5-point favorites on FanDuel right now. That is the madman hammer play of the week. The Texans are going to roll the New England Patriots and rookie quarterback Drake Maye. I am slamming that. I am hammering that line, 6.5 points on FanDuel. Now, Drake Maye isn't the only rookie quarterback getting his first start of the year. The New Orleans Saints, not by choice, by necessity, are going to be rolling with a rookie as well. We'll go to James from Locked On Buccaneers to break that news down.
Saints quarterback Derek Carr is set to miss multiple games with an oblique injury, according to multiple reports, and coming off of the short week, then turning around and playing this weekend against the Bucs, then playing again on Thursday night. The Saints are in a little bit of a tough spot. Backup quarterback Jake Haener went in for Derek Carr in the fourth quarter of the game against the Chiefs on Monday night, but there's now speculation that fifth-round rookie Spencer Rattler could get the start Sunday against Tampa. Rattler played 2 years at Oklahoma, 2 years at South Carolina. He finished last year with 3,186 yards, 19 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. It's a big ask for a rookie fifth-round pick to make his first start in a division matchup with high stakes, but that appears to be the direction that the Saints are currently leaning.
And now you would know better than anyone, Ross. That's the direction they'll go. Now, different from the Patriots, I got to say this is the right move for the Saints, in my opinion. I would much rather see what you have in Spencer Rattler than go with Jake Haener. I think that's the right move. But at the end of the day, the angle that I take from this, Ross, is I love the Tampa Bay Bucks minus 3.5. I hate giving that half point there over the 3. That's where you always get into trouble in these situations. But I think Tampa Bay is just a better team. Tampa Bay has a rest advantage in this game. Not them coming off Thursday night, the Saints coming off Monday night. So I guess my question to you is, do you think that Spencer Rattler gives the Saints a chance to win this game against the Bucs?
I think every now and then you end up, Tyler, in a team where you go to a backup quarterback, you go to a rookie quarterback in particular, and you kind of get that one-game bump. I do think that the Saints have the opportunity to get this one-game bump. I cannot tell you how excited New Orleans Saints fans are about seeing Spencer Rattler. And look, it's not all
Derek Carr will do that to you, Ross.
Stop. But look, it's one of those situations too, to where you have this young rookie quarterback that can add some mobility to this wide zone system. You look for something that this New Orleans Saints team hasn't had. You don't have that quarterback that can turn a 3rd and 8 into a 1st and 10. Spencer Rattler might be able to give you that. So if there's one of these two quarterbacks that are playing new in either New England or New Orleans, I think the one that gives the opportunity for that one-game bump is going to be Spencer Rattler in New Orleans. But I don't think it's all going to be perfect. It's going to be all about how he manages the adversity when things do go wrong.
Well, I think that's fair. And I think another advantage here is Tampa Bay hasn't seen this version of the New Orleans Saints offense with Spencer Rattler. So that might give them an advantage in that way too.
And 5 of the last 7 starting rookie quarterbacks up against Tampa have won those games. So I just want to throw that in there too. This has been a thing.
That's some interesting historical context. I don't care, Ross. The Buccaneers are winning that game. But with that being said, speaking of a one-game bump, the New York Jets fired some coaches this week, and I still don't think that it's going to matter. Locked On NFL, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Robinhood Gold. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn a very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash. Receive unlimited 1% deposit bonuses and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on IRA accounts. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here. with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. Today's episode is also brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the most fun and the easiest way to play daily fantasy sports. That's probably why they have over 10 million members and billions of dollars have been awarded in winnings. Prize Picks makes daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Again, it's so easy. Justin Jefferson, more or less than 83.5 receiving yards. Patrick Mahomes, more or less than 265 passing yards. Tyreek Hill, more or less than 97.5 receiving. Do you see where I'm going with this, folks? It's really that easy. Make sure that you download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the Prize Picks app. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL. You're going to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. It's Prize Picks. Run your game. All right, Ross, let's continue today's edition of the Locked On NFL podcast, talking about some of our favorite bets of the week and, of course, the biggest stories in the NFL. Talked about 2 rookie quarterbacks set to make their debut, but now we got to talk about another team that is making a big change or has made a big change in the New York Jets. Before, thanks again for making a Locked On NFL your first listen. Make sure that you tune back in on Monday morning when we recap what's bound to be another crazy week in the NFL here on the Locked On NFL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. But Ross, the New York Jets fired Robert Saleh. And when they did it, I said, you're not really addressing the main issue. The main issue is Nathaniel Hackett at offensive coordinator. But to the Jets' credit, they addressed that as well. And my guy, John B. from Locked On Jets, talked about that news.
In fact, Woody Johnson, when he fired Robert Saleh, should have also fired Nathaniel Hackett. You know, if Woody Johnson was actually serious about fixing the offense, he should have done it himself. This never should have fallen to Ulbrich. Interestingly and ironically, Saleh's last active Jets head coach was to demote Hackett. He had decided reportedly to strip Hackett of his play calling duties and give them to Downing. And then 5 minutes later, he was fired. Well, Jeff Ulbrich took over 2 days ago when he spoke to the press. He did not commit because he had just taken the job. He probably had not had time to think about it. But after a couple of days of thinking about it, Todd Downing takes over as offensive coordinator. Thus ends the era of Nathaniel Hackett, one of the least creative offensive coordinators you'll ever see, one of the least imaginative offensive coordinators you'll ever see, and one of the least effective offensive coordinators you'll ever see.
Okay, I don't think that John is wrong in that scathing review of Nathaniel Hackett. Here's the problem, Ross. Todd Downing is about exactly the same. Todd Downing has taken over the play calling duties for the New York Jets, and I covered Todd Downing for 2 years. And let me tell you that I hate to tell you, Jets fans, but it ain't getting any better in terms of creativity and imagination and all that with Todd Downing at the helm. He's not going to change things. So you talked about the 1-game bump in chemistry and energy and morale or whatever that we often see when these big changes are made, whether it be quarterback, whether it be a coach firing.
Right.
But I'm sorry, Jets fans, that's not coming. And the Buffalo Bills aren't even giving up 3 points in this game. The Bills are 2.5-point favorites on FanDuel right now. If I didn't already make my hammer play of the week, the Texans, I would be hammering the Bills because the Buffalo Bills are a way better football team than the New York Jets. And the Jets have not improved their coaching in any way. So I think the Bills are going to roll here, and I don't think that what the Jets have done is going to matter at all.
Yeah, moving on from Robert Saleh is something that if this New York Jets team was going to do, they should have done it back in January. They should have done it back in the offseason. Doing it here at this point in the season, when you're still kind of in contention for the number 1 spot in your division, when you're actually seeing some pretty solid play from your defense, which is Robert Saleh's bread and butter, I don't think that there's anything here that tells you that the Jets just took a step forward in terms of making this move. For me, I think there's a lot of uncovered undiscussed turmoil right now that's going on within that building that I think is going to cause just more issues as this season rolls along. And I think they get magnified this weekend.
Absolutely. And just one other little note for folks, if they weren't paying attention on Thursday night, Hassan Reddick, the Jets edge rusher, has been holding out the entire season. And Jets owner, Woody Johnson, invited him to come back and said, it's a new day. We'll figure this out. Well, rather than come back, Hassan Reddick got dropped by his agency. So he is still not ready to come back. He is salty about the situation. So the Jets, you thought you were, sun up on a new day. I don't really know that that's going to happen. But moving right along, we've been talking to some rookie quarterbacks early in the show. I want to go to another rookie quarterback here in Caleb Williams, because I think one of the most interesting games of the weekend is the Chicago Bears and the Jacksonville Jaguars in London. I always love those 9:30 games as someone here on the East Coast. It's always great to wake up, have a nice breakfast, and have some football on the television. I know that the Jaguars won last week, but Caleb Williams looked great last week as well. And if he does that again, I think things go back to being bad in Jacksonville. And Lauren Cox, my guy from Chicago, talked about that on Locked On Bears.
Past week against the Panthers was really like that proof of concept. Like, oh yeah, there it is. Like it clicked. He could look off a safety. He was changing plays at the line of scrimmage. He was updating protections. He would check to, like there was a blitz coming and he checked to an RPO and threw away from the blitz. Like all the little things that you don't necessarily fully expect a rookie quarterback to do 5 weeks into his rookie season, he's been able to do it. And it's been sort of that steady incremental growth from week 1 to week 5, where every week it feels like he adds one other layer to his game. And against the Panthers, it was really being able to connect on those deep passes downfield. Early in the season, they took those shots, but they would just be, a yard or two off here or there, trying to get on the same page with everybody. When it's 40 yards downfield, those are really, really difficult balls to place perfectly. But you mentioned that touchdown to DJ Moore. Like that's right in the breadbasket without even having to look at Moore until 2 seconds into the play, because they already knew where he was going to go and where he needed to put the ball once he moved the safety out of the way.
Okay, so I know that Jacksonville beat Indy last week. Indianapolis just cannot win in Jacksonville. They haven't. I made a joke earlier this week. They haven't since I was in high school, but it's literally been like 13 straight trips to Jacksonville that Indianapolis hasn't won. So I'm sorry. I'm throwing that division game away. I still think Jacksonville is absolutely awful. I think that the Bears, who are 1.5-point favorites right now, I love the Bears with that line. They're going to go in there and win. And Luke Braun, the brain, made a great observation earlier this week with the Jets firing that Woody Johnson, due to his time in the UK as an ambassador, had a lot of fancy friends in London who saw his team get embarrassed, and that spurred him on to fire his head coach. Shad Khan, the owner of the Jags, has a lot of relationships in London, and if he sees his team get embarrassed in London, it could be a similar situation coming back to the States for the Jaguars.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, Doug Peterson and those Jacksonville Jaguars, they're going to get embarrassed in London this weekend. There's absolutely no doubt about it to me. And I'll give you 2 reasons why. The first of which is that the Jaguars defense cannot get pressure on quarterbacks without blitzing. Fifth lowest pressure rating in the NFL without blitzing. So you've got to be able to put 4 down and be able to get pressure on that quarterback without blitzing. Why? Because DJ Moore has come to life. 5 receptions for 100+ yards last week, looked excellent. And the Jacksonville Jaguars have given up the most receiving yards to wide receivers across the NFL so far, 1,052, along with 6 touchdowns. We've been talking about our FanDuel Friday and our bets, plus whatever. I don't care what it is. More over when it comes to DJ Moore's receiving yards. And then anytime touchdown score, great for your parlay for DJ Moore this week.
Absolutely. I think the Bears win that one. But talking about saving the season, Jaguars need to save their season. I don't think they will. But another team saved their season on Thursday Night Football. It was the San Francisco 49ers. And on the other side of it, the Seahawks, they are who we thought they were. That and more on today's edition of Locked On NFL. We've been telling you about all of the great bets we like on FanDuel this episode of Locked On NFL. Now it is your turn to check out America's #1 sportsbook, and especially right now, because you could start the second quarter of the NFL season with a big return on FanDuel. when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you go on FanDuel, you can check out the latest stats, you can view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same exact page where you place your bets. FanDuel is like an all-encompassing hub of football information, and even better, right now you can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Again, I love the Houston Texans -6.5 against the New England Patriots. Me and Ross are both loving the Bears -1.5 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. If you want to check out those bets and a lot more options, make sure that you go to America's #1 sportsbook. It's FanDuel. Go to FanDuel.com. All right, Ross, let's cap off today's edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. It is a FanDuel Friday, giving out some of our best bets of the weekend. Talked about the rookie quarterbacks, talked about the Jets making changes that won't matter. Caleb Williams set to end Jacksonville's season. Excited to see that. I can't lie to you there. But speaking of ending seasons, the season would have been over for the San Francisco 49ers if they lost this game on Thursday Night Football, especially after going up early. Would have been 3 straight division losses. They would have dropped to 2-4. Would have been a very difficult hole to climb out of. But they were able to win the game, and they were able to pull it out. My guy Brian Peacock from Locked On 49ers broke down the big win.
San Francisco 49ers have a piece of the NFC West, defeating the Seattle Seahawks, putting up 36 points. And guess what? Finishing for the first time against a team in the NFC West this season. 2 touchdowns for George Kittle. Purdy was awesome. Kittle was awesome. The offense was on point. They were running the ball. Big run from the rookie, Garendo. And really, the rookies were the story of this game. Garendo, the big run to finish it, a 76-yarder after Jordan Mason got hurt at the end of the first half. And rookie defensive backs, Malik Mustafa, an interception to start the game. And Renardo Green, the rookie second-rounder, cornerback, an interception to really seal the game in the second half. The 49ers are now back in this thing. A big win, a must win on a Thursday night against division rival Seattle Seahawks. Back on track, and they just got to keep finishing if they want to go to where they want to go this season, which is, the ultimate goal. Super Bowl or bust, baby.
Listen, Ross, I'll tell you this. They saved their season, and I think that if San Francisco lost that game, they may have been in big, big trouble for the playoffs, but I don't know about Super Bowl again. I think that Super Bowl hangover is still going to matter. There's just something off. They give up the kick return. They're not consistent through most of the third quarter. The Seahawks were turning over the ball and kind of handed the game to them early on. I don't know that this San Francisco team is quite Super Bowl ready right now.
Yeah, this was a tough one for them and one that they absolutely needed. I want to go to our other Locked On 49ers co-host, Eric Crocker, who took to Twitter and said that the 49ers could not lose this game because dropping to 2-4, being 0-3 in the division, and going further, being 0-4 in the conference would have been a bit of a death knell for this team, right? Especially when it comes to tiebreakers, trying to get to that Super Bowl place. I don't think that you can look at the San Francisco 49ers right now and say that this is a Super Bowl caliber team, especially with all the injuries that they're dealing with, the frequency of the injuries. We saw George Kittle have to come off. We saw something weird happen with Deebo Samuel's left hand, where he had to go off the field for a little while as well. Yeah, Gordon Mason, absolutely. Jordan Mason, absolutely. And so I think that all of that makes you look at the San Francisco 49ers team and say, okay, there's cracks in the foundation. But I do understand from an expectation standpoint, Super Bowl or bust, because this is kind of the time to where this team has to prove that all that money that they've invested, all these players that they have, all these names that they've got, that it's going to finally be able to turn the corner and bring home a Super Bowl. So I get it from the expectation standpoint, but I don't think you're looking at this team as a Super Bowl team just at this moment.
And the Seahawks got closer. Obviously, San Francisco pulled it out still with the double-digit win, but I'm sorry, it's got to be in the back of their head still a little bit, even though they won. Man, we had them down 23-3, and they still found a way to make it close at the end. And we, had to get that late touchdown to make it double digits, or it was really a 5-point. And all of this comes back to, I hate to do it, but Kyle Shanahan be part of that blown Super Bowl. Something about Kyle Shanahan, man, he just cannot close these things out with his offense, no matter how much of a wizard he is. It's crazy. I do want to flip to the other side of it, though, Ross. And, you know, if you don't pat yourself on the back, nobody will. And I'm going to pat myself on the back a little bit here. I did not believe in the Seattle Seahawks. They go 3-0, and everybody's like, oh, Geno Smith's playing like a top 5 quarterback and blah, 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 blah. No. Geno Smith was awful in this game for most of the game. He made a few throws at the end to make it look closer than it needed to be, but he was awful a lot in this game, threw 2 interceptions. And I hammered this point with Michelle on yesterday's show. The Seahawks keep turning over the ball, and they're playing bad teams that allow them to get away with it. And now they've been playing teams that aren't bad, and they cannot get away with it. They lived off a terrible schedule at the beginning of the year with the Patriots and the Broncos and the Dolphins, the JV Dolphins is what I keep calling them, without Tua and a bunch of injuries. Like, they absolutely lived off a bad schedule. And I think the Seahawks are much more of a 500 to a little bit below 500 team than the undefeated Geno in the MVP conversation type team that people thought they were in the first 3 weeks. I never bought into that because of the schedule, and it's playing out right now too.
This is the issue of relying on a streaky quarterback. You probably heard that a lot if you watched this game on the broadcast. They talked about this a lot when it came to Geno Smith, the big touchdown drive that they got that brought them within a score of the San Francisco 49ers, 5 of 6 on that drive, plus the touchdown. But then you had the overthrown interception to Malik Mustafa, which Brian mentioned. You had the ball that he just didn't drive enough on the dig to DK Metcalf that got picked off by the rookie corner over there in San Francisco. And I think the other thing, too, is just the operational issues, the false starts, the illegal motions and things like that erased a touchdown that would have been huge for this team. Now, they ended up still getting it later, but they got it 2 minutes later, which made a big difference in terms of what the game situation was. And so I think that, like, there's a couple of things here where you're looking at the streaky quarterback, live or die by how he's doing and the temperature of what that is. And in those operational issues, that is a sign of an undisciplined and unreliable team. And I think that's the only way you can classify the Seattle Seahawks at this point.
100%. And they're supposed to be a defensive-led team with, obviously Mike McDonald being a defensive guy, but they have so many injuries on that side of the ball right now that they're not able to win that way. And quite honestly, people were excited about Ryan Grubb being the offensive coordinator, but we're talking about all these operational penalties. And to me, at the end of the day, that's coaching. If your offense has a lot of operational penalties, the coaching staff is not getting these guys ready to play, and they don't have a smart enough understanding of what they're supposed to be doing out there and how things are supposed to go. So at this point in time, I know it was nice at the beginning of the year, but I don't think that Ryan Grubb has proved to be a good enough hire at offensive coordinator. And I think Mike McDonald is a good, defensive coach and will be a good head coach. But with the lack of talent that they generally had, and then the injuries as well, Seattle's just not good enough on either side of the ball to get this thing done. But with that being said, Ross, FanDuel Friday, another big success. The Madman and the Mastermind. We continue to roll on. The weekend is here. Do want to remind you guys, make sure that you step into the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for the afternoon edition of Locked On NFL. He's going to be talking about some of the best games of this weekend as well. The football weekend is back. I'll be here with you on Monday, as I always am, with my guy Gino to break down all of the craziness of Week 6. It's Locked On NFL, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure you get subscribed. Make sure you stay subscribed. And as I tell you guys every single episode, stay safe out there.